welcome back to the channel. You're watching Unbiased Magic Reviews. Thanks so much for stopping by and spending a few moments of your day with me. Today I'm going over a masterclass. Specifically, I'm taking a look at Jason Ladanye's masterclass, which was put out about 2 years ago with Vanishing Ink Magic. And I can tell you guys that this would easily place on a short list of the top 5 card magic masterclasses or lectures that was put out by Vanishing Ink Magic. I have been using this material for over 1.5 years, getting good reactions with it, and I found that the material on this lecture is invaluable, especially the advice on the last week was just incredible. I really liked it a lot. If you're not familiar with Jason Ladanye, then you're probably not into card magic because he's a card magician. He has a very successful YouTube channel here where he does a lot of demonstrations and takes on challenges that people give him for doing things like run-ups and stuff, and catching random cards out of the dribble and all kinds of other interesting stuff that you should check out if you haven't already. He was a student of Darwin Ortiz's, and I've been following his magic ever since he put out his first book, Confident Deceptions. I have all of his books. I have The Game Changer. I have most of his lecture notes. I even have some lecture notes which are autographed because the people I bought it from, I guess it was autographed to them or whatever, which makes you wonder, like, why would they sell it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I have most of his material, and I've always found that it's really great stuff, especially because he has a different way of thinking and looking at things. So if you like things like Pharaoh Shuffle, Pinky Count, Memorize, Stack, then you're going to really like this kind of material. I would tell you guys that in difficulty wise, I would say that this is like for advanced intermediate card magician, because he does use a lot of advanced sleight of hand to achieve what looks like an utter miracle, really. So it is going to require quite a bit of practice. Now, this masterclass in particular, I would say that about 30% of the material is really easy and you'll be able to learn it really quickly. And then the rest of the material, you're going to have to put in a little bit of practice. Now, I know there's a special right now on Vanishing Ink where you can get like a trial subscription service for like $1. So if you sign up for that, I would highly urge you to check out this masterclass. And I'm going to try to go over what I think is really good on here. But if you do like this stuff, I would urge you even further to buy his books, because that's the best value you're going to get for your money. And if you're looking for a lecture that's inexpensive, that has really good material on it, I would refer you to check out his At the Table lecture, because it's being sold by Penguin Magic for I think like $8. And I would tell you guys that half of the material on that lecture is excellent material. And by the end of this review, I'll circle back and tell you just a few things about that lecture as well, because I've studied that lecture extensively and used the material from it as well, because it's the majority of it's different material than what is presented here on this masterclass lecture. So I'm going to try to give you guys a rundown of what you can expect on each week. I'm going to actually do a demonstration of my favorite effect from the whole masterclass lecture here, just so you guys can see it. Part of the issue of doing any demonstration of any of these effects here is that they all use spectators. They all, and a lot of times, multiple spectators. So for that reason, I'm not doing a lot of demonstrations for you guys here, because you guys know I like to do demonstrations of the magic that I perform, especially this magic, because I've been using it for quite a while. And I would recommend, like I said, more than half of this stuff to you guys, as we're going to get into. So I'm going to give you guys a rundown on what you can expect. And I'm going to really emphasize the pieces that I've studied well and that I've used myself in the real world that I've gotten good reactions from. So starting out with week 1, we have the first effect, which was a collector's effect. It was called Ladanye's Collectors. And that was an effect that used the memorized deck, and actually used 2 decks, where 3 selections end up underneath the hand of the spectator that they're holding them there, the aces, and they end up in between them. Personally, I don't use the effect because it uses 2 decks, but some people might like it. It's very magical appearing, so you may want to check that out. The next effect is All in the Hands, and that effect is an effect where a spectator just freely names a card, and then you're going to give them a random card, have them stab it into the middle of the deck, tell them that they're going to try to locate their named card, and then lo and behold, the card they're holding is their random thought of card. Now, this type of effect, as far as back as I've studied, I found that I think it was originated with Animan in the Jinx. At least that's the earliest that I can find of this type of effect, where the spectator selection is the card that they're holding, even though they're stabbing it in the deck trying to locate their selection. And there is a myriad of variations and versions of this effect that exist out there. And if you are looking for another contemporary version, I know that Ben Earl put out one that's similar to this. The difference being that this version on the Masterclass uses a memorized stack, and I think the Ben Earl version doesn't. Now, the advantage of the memorized stack in this version is that the spectator is going to randomly name a card, and in your simple instructions of telling them that they're going to take a random card, and you tell them like that you just take the top card, and you explain to them that they're going to just stab it in the middle, so that way it all makes sense, then you're going to give them a random card, and up until the very last second, right before it's in their hands, they see that it's a random card, and they stab it into the deck, and you show them that, oh, nope, that's not your card. And the next one, nope, that's not your card. So it looks like they missed, but then they're going to be shocked when they realize that the card they're holding in their hand is their selection. So very commercial walk around type effect. And the best part is that you can get right back into your stack almost instantly. So this is a kind of effect that you can throw into the middle of your card set that you do with your memorized deck anyway. And it's called All in the Hands. Moving along to the next effect, it's called the Setup. And this effect you can find in his book, Confident Deceptions, my favorite effect of the first week. And the reason is because this effect is just very, very engaging to the audience member. And this is the perfect effect when somebody says, teach me a trick. You know, I'm sure you guys have had that experience where you have a spectator that they want to learn a trick. They say, hey, can you show me a trick? And you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll show you a trick. You can set it up right in front of them within seconds. And what you do is you have them select a card from the pack, they look at it, and then they return it. And then you say, look, under these conditions, I'm going to find your card. You go through the pack and you say, oh, here it is, the 7 of clubs. And they'll say, no, actually it's this or that. And you go, oh, okay, good thing I got the right card then. And you show them that. And it's like, kind of hits them over the head for a second. It's kind of a funny joke. But then in continuation, you offer to teach them the effect. And you explain to them how the deck, you've split it up into reds and blacks, and you start showing it to them. And it seems like, oh, that makes sense. That's simple. And then in the explanation, you have them select another card, and you have them return it. And then you start doing things like you start cutting the deck, and then you throw in a Pharaoh shuffle in the middle, and it looks like, oh, wait a second. Then you're screwing the whole thing up now because you're shuffling the pack. You know, you're shuffling the two halves together. Like, it'll be a shock to your spectator when now you turn over half the pack, spread it out, and there's all, you know, all of the black cards or all the red cards, and then you spread out the other side, and they see that the only red card within the black cards is their selection. And so I really thought it was really smart, very clever, very easy. If you can do a Pharaoh shuffle, then you can do this. It's actually a really easy effect to do. And if you don't do the Pharaoh shuffle, I would recommend that you try it out just because it'll help you learn the shuffle. It'll help you learn a lot. For me, it was my favorite effect from the first week. Then the next effect that he goes over is called Hold'em Hustle. And this is a gambling demonstration effect where basically you stack 2 cards from any position in the deck. Not an effect that I would use, but some people that are into gambling demos might like that. And then the last routine on the first week was called The Art of War. And that was in his book. I think it was The Game Changer. I think that's where that was. Basically, it's the classic game of war. If you're from the United States, then you're probably familiar with the game War. I thought that it was kind of procedure heavy, and I really didn't like how it does use kind of an extensive setup in the beginning. But if you like this kind of idea of doing some type of like gambling demo or this type of, you know, game with your spectator, then you might like it a lot. But you can find that again, like in his book, The Game Changer, like I said. So that wraps up the first week of the lecture. All right, moving along to week 2, almost every piece on this week's lecture was just a clear hit. These are all bangers. And if we start out with the first routine was called The Gathering. And this is one of those effects that came from his first book, Confident Deceptions. It took its inspiration from a collector's routine, which was in a book by James Swain called 21st Century Card Magic. I think that's what it was called. I don't even remember the name of the collector's routine there. But the issue with that effect was that you had to do this ugly riffle force on each of the 3 spectators. And I think that Jason completely fixed that, completely. So in this version, you're going to spread the deck out, and this is like from a shuffle deck in use, you can get right into this, which is great. You're gonna spread the deck out, you're gonna have 3 people make 3 selections from wherever they want, and then here you're able to just apparently let them put their card back in different parts of the pack, which was great. Another improvement from the version that you can find in 21st Century Card Magic. And then here, I do also like how Jason added that you're going to cut the deck to look for a special card. You turn over the top card and it can be whatever it is you want, the queen or an ace or whatever, if you're going to use the aces or the queens. And then you're going to give the deck another shuffle. And then in the original version, you would just then reveal that, that actually it's like the aces that have captured the selections. But here what's great is that he's using a type of ribbon spread hideout technique to show that there's just one card face up, and then he gathers it up, and then he actually picks the card up off the top, just the one single card that they're going to see, and then in continuation, in a very magical way, you're just going to let it kiss the deck for a second, and now you've got the whole 4 of a kind. You can spread them out in your hand, and each of the 3 selections is caught in between it. So I really liked the finale, the climax. It's very magical, greatly improved from the inspiration that it came from. And I would say that this is like intermediate level difficulty. You do have to be able to do a Pharaoh shuffle, but it doesn't have to be perfect. That's also a good thing for you. But you do have to be able to do a pinky count. And it's really not too difficult if you practice, but you will have to be able to do a pinky count in real time in front of a spectator. So you may want to just keep that in mind, that you're going to have to practice that. But like I said in the beginning, pinky count is an important technique that you really should learn if you're into card magic anyway. And that's the first effect of week 2. Moving along to the second effect, we have an effect called Fast Track. And this was a tracking effect where basically a spectator is going to name a card. You're going to openly take it out, show it to them, put it on the top of the deck, and you're going to explain to them that through a series of shuffles and cuts, you're going to keep track of that card. You can tell them the number of where it's at, then you can count down and show them that it's exactly where you said it was. You give it some more shuffles, and then now you can even tell them not only where it is, but like what cards are in between it and stuff. And so this is a kind of shuffle tracking effect. And then at the end, you actually have found the 4 of a kind. It's the only effect of this week that I don't use because I'm not really into the gambling demos. But if you are into like a gambling demonstration type performer, then you probably would like it a lot. And that's the second effect that's on there. And for those that are interested, you can also find that in his book Game Changer. Moving along to the next effect, we have an effect called Cash Grab. And this was like one of those real gems of this week. This effect, you offer a spectator to win like $100 from you. You tell them that you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna give you a chance to win $100. They're going to make a selection in a very fair way. They're gonna cut the deck. It's gonna seem like there's no way that you could know anything about their card. And then you're going to tell them that you're gonna deal out a couple of hands, you're gonna deal out the deck like as in if you were dealing out hands of a game of poker or something. You deal out the whole deck and the amount of hands that they tell you, and then you start putting the piles together and you're trying to bet on where their card could be. Finally, at the end, apparently it looks like you're not going to know where it is. It looks impossible. ultimately you're going to just get a random card. You're going to show them a random card that's obviously not their card, and you're just going to put it down on the table and put the $100 on top of it. You have them name their card, and of course, that's their card. So the whole effect looks completely impossible from their perspective because the selection procedure is very fair. It's done where you're not even looking, your back is turned. It looks like there's no way you could know anything. And then this whole dealing out the deck into piles and stuff, it looks like things are just getting further randomized. Little do they know that that's actually part of the method, which is hilarious. The effect is like completely self-working. There's no sleight of hand at all. It uses some very clever principles, and I would say that it's ultra beginner level, but I wouldn't say anything bad about it. I think it's an excellent effect, even though it's super simple, it's super hard hitting. Anyone that I've used it on has been completely impressed, and especially if you're going to be using money with it, because people are interested in winning money. And up until that last second where they see that card, where you show them that card and you say, I'm going to go with this one, and you're putting it on the table, they're convinced that you totally messed up. And it's not until after they name their card and you turn it over and show it to them that it is their card that they're going to be completely they're going to be like nonplussed. They're going to be like, what the heck? How's that possible? So even though I would tell you guys that it's the easiest effect on this whole lecture series, I would say that is one of the hardest hitting effects in the mind of the spectator. And so definitely worth learning, definitely worth using. I've had a lot of fun with it. So that is Cash Grab. For those interested, there was a series of lecture notes that was called Cash Grab, and it was also included in there with some other effects that you might like as well. So you may want to try to track that down. Moving along to the next effect, there's an effect there that he's never released before. It's called Trifecta, a very commercial walk around effect, just like the last one I just went over. This one is ultra simple to perform. Very simple effect, yet very hard hitting, where 3 spectators make 3 selections. They're lost in different parts of the pack, and then you say that you're going to try to find them. You ask the first person for their selection. You just riffle down the pack and you show them that you can find it just by cutting to it. And then instantly you ask the third person for their selection, and the second person's card visually changes into the third person's card. And then after that, all you do is turn it over and you hand it to the second person, ask them what their card is, and it is now their card. So it's a very hard-hitting effect that's very quick. You could perform the whole effect in less than a minute, really. So something very commercial, good for walk around, good to use because it can be done from a shuffle deck in use, which is great. And I thought the teaching on it was really good, especially how he goes over like the Neil Elias multiple shift. I personally use a totally different multiple shift, but I think that the Neil Elias multiple shift is a great multiple shift as well. So you're going to get a lot out of that. And then finally, the last effect that you're going to learn from the second week, which is my favorite effect here on the whole lecture series, is the effect that's called High Card Hustle. And this actually feels like a gambling demonstration of sorts. But the reason why this is my favorite effect is because of the reactions I've gotten from spectators I've performed it for. The effect is the old game of cutting to the high card. That's what it is. You're going to offer to the spectator that we're going to try to cut to the high card, and you tell them that, of course you're going to win because your spectator has bad luck. And you try to like really bring that in over and over again. In each phase, if you want to really do that, you could say, do you really have bad luck or something, before you even reveal it, to really hammer it in on them if you want to. And in my own experience, when I've performed this for like a large group of people, everybody got into it. Everybody got really excited because it's such a simple premise. The idea of I'm going to cut, you're going to cut. We're going to see who cut to the high card, right? And you really can frame this any way you want. The presentation can be in any way that you want to. But the reason why I found that it was such an effective routine is because every phase you shuffle the deck, you cut the deck, and yet you're still finding that you're cutting to the high card, and it builds up. So it's a lot of fun, and I found it to be really my favorite effect here on the lecture. In fact, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like in my own hands. Let's take a look at it now. Here's a quick demo of High Card Hustle, and I would say that this is like really intermediate level. It's one of the easier routines to perform, and it gets such strong reactions. You explain to the spectators that you're going to play cut to the high card. You ask them if they know what that is. You say the important thing is that we give the deck a shuffle each round. And what's interesting here is that you tell them that what's going to happen is that they're going to cut off to a card and you're going to cut and you're going to beat them. Of course, you're going to get a higher card, just like you did here hypothetically, right? And that's going to get a laugh. And in case you are wondering, that the pharaohs don't have to be perfect, which is also kind of a nice thing about the routine. So the pharaohs, even though mine are perfect here, they don't have to be perfect, right? So then you tell a spectator, here's the rules though, is that when you cut, you can't just cut off a couple off of the top, and you can't cut off everything and just leave a couple on the bottom. You actually have to cut for real, okay? So you say, okay, let's do it for real this time. So like, I'm gonna cut off some cards. And you say, look, I'm going to give you this option. Do you want me to return this card or take another card? And maybe they say take another card. Say, okay, I'm doing what you said. You're in control. You cut off some cards. They're going to cut off some cards. And you're going to say, do you have bad luck? And they'll say, why? When they show you, you're going to say, oh, a 5. You say, this is why, because of course, I beat you. So that's going to get a laugh. And that's going to be kind of like the running gag each time. Say, all right, let's go for another round. I'm going to just give this another shuffle, right? And we're going to also give this just a couple of cuts, keep us honest, right? And keep in mind something, that depending upon where you cut, you may cut to a card like this that's kind of in the middle. You may cut to a high card like this. If you cut deeper, you may cut, look, this is a lower card, look, this is a little bit higher. So it's really up to you where you cut. In fact, maybe you think I'm cheating you. Why don't you cut for me? Cut off some cards for me. So they're going to cut off some cards for you. You're going to say, let me see how you did. Interesting. Do you want me to switch it for that one? Or do you want to add a card or what? Maybe this time they say no, they don't want to add a card. So then you tell them, cut off some cards for you. So they're going to cut off some cards for you. Again, if you want, you can even offer them to add a card if they want. But you're going to tell them, and here's the funny gag that I always say every time I say, do you have bad luck? And they say, why? You say, because look, you cut a 4 and you cut me a jack. Look, I won even when you cut for me, right? You must have really bad luck. And that's, again, like that's the running gag with this routine. And, you know, some people, they laugh about it. They're good sports about it. Other people will get upset about it if you really hammer them too much. So what I like to do is I like to just ask them, do you have bad luck? Anyway, you say, look, let's switch things up for this last round, okay? For this last round, I'm going to try to give you a little bit more opportunity to win, okay? Because maybe you think I've been cheating you or something. So what we're gonna do is this. I'm gonna cut a couple of smaller packets here. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna give you more than one option to beat me, okay? Because maybe you just had such bad luck, right? So you say, look, I've got 4 piles here, and in fact, let's use the top cards so that way you don't think I'm cheating you. And I'm gonna give you whatever the highest value of the 3 piles that you choose, that's the one that you'll use. I'll use whatever's left over. Whatever pile's left over will be mine. So choose a pile. Maybe they choose this pile and you say, okay, let's see how you did. You got a 7, not bad, that's pretty good. Choose another pile. Maybe they go with, for instance, this pile here. So now they got a jack. The jack is not bad. So now we're down to just 2 piles. So maybe they decide they want to go with the last pile. So you say, okay, that's going to leave me here with the second pile. And you say, let's see, how did you do here? And you're going to turn that over and you're going to say, ooh, a 5. A 5 is not bad, but it's not too high, right? So you say, okay, so overall, what did you get? You had the jack, right? That's your highest card here, which is not bad, but my ace beats your jack. Just bad luck for you, I guess. And it's at this point where it really hits home, where they realize that there's no way that they could beat you no matter what, because even when they made all the decisions, you still crushed them, which is a lot of fun. And if you're performing this for like a large group of people, everyone will get involved and it will be really crazy because they will all just really get into it. And if somebody turns the deck over and spreads it out like this, like they've done when I've done it, they won't see anything. It just looks like a shuffled deck of cards. So it's really examinable at the end, which is great, which is why I really like this routine a lot. And I think you're gonna like it a lot. So that effect was called High Card Hustle, and as I mentioned before, I cannot recommend it enough to you guys. I think you're really gonna like it a lot. And then finally, we get into week three. Week three, I think it was only like 1 hour long, and that was the question and answer session. And I thought that it was a lot more valuable than most question and answer sessions that you go over. And I think it's because Jason Ladanye really opened up. He talked about his own learning experience, and he really gave excellent advice for people that are trying to learn sleight of hand. And I think that part of the reason why it was such good advice is because he's also a musician. And those of us who are into music, play musical instruments, know that you're not going to learn the instrument overnight. And so I felt that the best piece of advice that he gave there was when people were asking, well, how long is it going to take me to learn, this or that? And he explained in detail how you shouldn't put a time limit on, something. You can't say like, oh, I'm going to learn this in 2 weeks, because you're just setting yourself up for failure. You should just strive to get better, strive for perfection, but keep in the back of your mind that you probably will never attain perfection because it's not attainable. And, those of us, like I said, that we play musical instruments, you learn this very early on, that you will spend hours practicing for very minimal improvements. And that really is also true, obviously, in card magic with sleight of hand. You can spend hours practicing and just see very minimal improvements. And a lot of people will give up on learning difficult card sleights because they don't see any improvement at all. I thought that Jason Ladanye gave excellent advice about things like the Neil Elias multiple shift. He goes over the Hustler's triple cut in detail. He gives you lots of tips on the pinky count and how to do a pharaoh and stuff like that. So you are going to learn a lot of technical aspects of card magic, as well as learning just about his own background and stuff like that. So I thought he really opened up well to people, and I just thought overall that the advice that he gave was just invaluable advice. It was all very good advice. It was excellent, and I think that really it's going to help a lot of people. Especially, he went over, giving people tips and stuff about different books and stuff that you should hunt down. So I thought that it was really useful. So that's what you can expect on the third week. So let's get into my rating now, and then I'm just going to give you guys some of my final thoughts. So my rating, as you can see, here it is right here, and you can see that I've rated the Masterclass score of 4.25 out of 5, which is highly favorable. And as I mentioned to you guys, I would rate this Masterclass as one of the top 5 card magic masterclasses on Vanishing Ink Magic. If you haven't seen it yet and you haven't picked it up and you're into card magic, I think that you're in for a real treat. You definitely should check it out. I think that you're really going to like it a lot. I can't recommend it enough to you guys. In terms of the other lecture that I mentioned to you guys, the At the Table lecture that he put out like back in 2018, the one that you can pick up for $8, there was totally different material on there. So if you're interested in also looking at some different material of his, I would recommend that you check that out, because the material from that lecture was mostly just stuff from Confident Deceptions and from Game Changer as well. But more than anything from Confident Deceptions, from what I remember. And I do remember that he had an excellent card at any number effect that was on there. He had an excellent Mercury card fold effect that was on there, which I think was called like Lucky Charms. Again, that also can be found in some of his lecture notes as well. And then he had this also, this other effect that's called Forging Ahead, which was really a great effect. So lots of good stuff on that lecture as well. And it was only $8. So definitely worth picking up, because you're going to learn totally different things, and he gives different types of advice on there. So I thought that was really good too. I just mention it for those of you that are thinking about, well, should I pick this up? Is this something I may want to take a look at? Because I think once you go down the rabbit hole and you start learning some of this material that Jason Ladanye has put out, then you're going to be like, oh, this is really great. This is not that bad. And then you'll practice it and you'll start using it, and then it'll become second nature, and it'll be something that you fall back on again and again. Again, I really like his material, as you guys can see, which is why I highly recommend it to you, because you don't see that many magicians that put this amount of meticulous time into the details to bring you well thought out routines with structures that are like really well ahead of the audience member, where you can really concentrate on your pattern and you're going to absolutely blow people away. Just like Jason Ladanye says in his lectures and stuff and in his books, he says that he strives to create magic where none of the effects are filler effects, that all of the effects have a really strong effect on the spectator. You would naturally expect that from all magic, but unfortunately sometimes some effects, they're not that, they're not going to get that kind of reaction. And so that's really the difference. Anyway, that's what I wanted to tell you guys about this masterclass. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. I really hope I did a good job to describe to you guys what you can expect here and answer those questions that you guys had. If you have some other questions that I haven't touched on, just leave me a comment below. If you like this kind of review, if you like that I'm reviewing masterclasses and magic lectures, then subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment below, just because that lets me know that you like this kind of review. Because if you don't like this kind of review, then there's no reason for me to do these kinds of reviews. So it's just important that you guys give me that feedback. Anyway, thanks so much guys for tuning in. I hope that you have a happy holiday, and I will see you on the next review.